Hi. Happy Thursday, y'all. I appreciate you making time. Sorry, I gotta close the tab here because some more music started playing for the benefit of only me. So I could hear it, but you couldn't. Hi. Happy Thursday. Truly appreciate you making time every Thursday and Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern here on my X channel. Let me get these annoying banners off of here. My goodness, somebody help me. There we go. All right, and everything is right there at themikeshow.com. Shout out to Hero West. We're always getting everything updated over there. Tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern is when this whole thing airs on YouTube and Rumble. Tomorrow morning it appears on Spotify, iTunes. Again, everything is at themikeshow.com. And speaking of at the Mike Show, go to the Instagram page that Gabby has set up over there. She's always putting up awesome stuff. Where are my computer graphics team? Here we go. Follow Wes at that guy at PGU on Twitter. And of course, Gabby is at Jeffy Apologist. She is the Instagram queen over there. Okay, let me get the show going there. Okay, awesome. Tomorrow, of course, Brad and Rebecca will be here. We'll have some Friday Live. We'll watch some animal videos. Oh my gosh, have I got questions about AI? There might be found money waiting for you. I'll give you the details on that. That's tomorrow at this time, 3 p.m. Eastern on this X channel. This is the only place it's actually live right now, 3 p.m. Eastern. There. Okay, that's enough words. Let me get my guest in here because, my goodness, I've been looking forward to this conversation. I work with a lot of good people over at my day job at the Blaze and Blaze TV. But the one who works the hardest, who chases down leads, who finds his own stories. I mean, this guy, oh my goodness, at Steve Baker USA on X. There he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Steve Baker, an investigative journalist. Is that the right title? Is that good?
Yeah, I mean,
you like that one?
You can call me anything you want to.
I mean, that's better than like reporter, you know? Like investigative journalist really sounds like you put them on a resume right there.
It's got gravitas, but then other people just call me a insurrectionist blogger.
Dude, no, you got street cred now, man. I mean, that's right? That's the best outcome. You got the pardon and the street cred of being a former felon. I don't know. Is that fair to put you for?
Trump and I both have federal charges, So.
Yes. Okay, Steve Baker. If you ever want to read some of his awesome work, go to theblaze.com. And then when you go to the little search area, you just type in Steve Baker. And then voila, there you go. And you get all of his articles that come up. And in fact, an article that came up today, I mean, we have basically breaking news, the article that just posted, and we are going to cover that extensively in the course of today's conversation. But the timing was so fortuitous for me because I had this thing booked where, we just wanted to touch base on what's going on at the FBI. It's been 9 months into the new regime over there.
Yeah.
And this isn't a live stream hit piece necessarily. It may turn out to feel that way to some, but it's an audit. It's an audit. I mean, there might be, I have no idea. There might be good stuff to share today, or it might all be bad. I know I have questions, and the guy to bring us the answers is Steve Baker, and we'll go through a lot of the stories from the last 9 months, and we'll ask my questions, and don't forget, follow Steve Baker USA. Okay, because I want, this was my dream team. I'll just say that up front. This is exactly who I wanted in the spots that they are occupying. I'm talking about Director Kash Patel, Assistant Director Dan Bongino. This is, but we'll get to that because this isn't a critique of those guys on a personal level whatsoever. This is who we wanted. Now we're going to find out and see how well they're doing. So, but let's go back to the Biden administration. Let's start there. And I think that in the course of this conversation, we have to delineate and make clear on our timelines as to which FBI we're talking about. And I know that you'll do a great job with that. But we had the COVID vaccine mandates. That's where I want to start. Because what a dreadful, dreadful overreach by Joe Biden himself.
Yeah. By
mandating government employees and those that do contract work and anybody that wanted to call themselves a federal employee, and it extended to healthcare as well. It's just, So I guess where I wanted to start there is, have we? More, I guess the better question is, are we? And the answer is probably no. There's not going to be any revisiting of anything COVID related or anything that was unconstitutional in that realm, right? I can go ahead and mark that one off of my pipe dream list.
Yeah. You know, look, I have always said that COVID was the incident, the circumstance that changed my life, because up until that point, I had, over 40 years in the music business. And then over the last 20 years prior to that, I had been, building a following as a hobbyist commentator on things, politics, and I started back in the really old and early days of internet social media, which of course back then was CompuServe and AOL, and I had always had an interest in those things, and I had written some stuff for some rags and publications, music and otherwise, but then I kind of found a little niche in AOL and those, great chat groups that they used to have on different.
Oh, wow.
And I had three big interests in my life at the time. It was music, obviously, was one, and then science fiction. I'm kind of a bit of a nerd in that regard, and then additionally was politics. So I started cutting my teeth there, writing, and started gaining a following, and then AOL turned into MySpace, and so I had 4 or 5 different MySpace pages. I had my personal page. I had a page for my bands. I had a page for my own solo music work. I had a page for politics, and so that was kind of my first blog, was in the MySpace world. And of course, when MySpace started imploding, 2008-ish, and everyone was migrating to Facebook, and I had no interest in Facebook at all at the time, but everyone was leaving, and MySpace was imploding and becoming much, much more. MySpace was becoming almost unnavigable. It was becoming so clunky and weird and hard to get to even work half the time. So I finally gave in and moved over there. And back in those days, they had a thing. Facebook had a thing called Notes, which was their version of a blog. They no longer support it. You can actually still pull up articles that I wrote there, but you have to know what to look for. But Notes was like an add-on kind of thing that was a blog feature of Facebook at the time, and so I started building there. And then as things started growing, and it really took off for me in the campaign, the first Trump campaign, 2015, 2016, my following started exponentially growing. And because, I have a more libertarian perspective. I was not a Trump supporter at the time. I was certainly not a Hillary Clinton supporter. In fact, I was, I'm being perfectly honest. I was hashtag never Trump, and I was hashtag never Hillary at the time. But I felt like my perspectives were at least fair and were following it. I didn't know who Trump was as a politician. We know that as a person and as a guy in the media, both as a celebrity and as a successful businessman and a book writer and all of these things, that he had commented a lot on a lot of political And so the one thing that I knew about him then is that he had been pretty much on every side of every issue at some point in his life, And I, one of the things that I loved about what he did at the time was he was just absolutely dismantling political correctness. He, in his first campaign, he probably set political correctness back 5 or 10 years anyway, on his own, by these crazy, volume of tweets that he was putting out. He didn't, he took no prisoners. He didn't care what people thought about them. And he's the consummate troller. and he could troll anybody, anytime, you know, and he's still doing that. I mean, he's still doing that successfully to this day. But it still wasn't enough for me to support him as a, you know, presidential candidate back in 2016. After 4 years of his presidency, I had him, you know, I had him roughly 50-50 entering the 2020 campaign, and had, you know, Joe Biden at -15. So, you know, I then jumped on and I did support Trump in 2020.
Yeah.
And so, you know, for me, it was, I always say it, you know, it was just the math. And then COVID happened. And essentially, that was when, as I said, my life changed, because the government took my job away from me. My income and the income of all the people that worked for me and with me in the music business was absolutely ripped out from underneath us, because we could no longer do live performances. You know, my primary income at the time was special events, that segment of the entertainment industry, and, you know, not ticket sales, but special events, you know, corporate events and weddings and festivals, things of that nature, where my bands were playing. And that all of a sudden one day ended. You know, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. 2 weeks became 2 months. And after 2 months, I actually had a feeling that was going to last a couple of years. So what I did is, and the way I always explain it, is I took my hobby, you know, my sideline, you know, thing, and I moved it to the captain's chair of my life, and I moved music to the co-pilot seat of my life. And so I just reversed it. You know, I went out and bought the podcast gear, and I set up a real blog, moved it off of Facebook to, you know, the real blog. And by then I had tens of thousands of followers. And then, of course, you know, Facebook began throttling everything, and just absolutely.
Yeah. And that actually leads me to a question that I was going to ask you. Have we seen any kind of movement on that censoring of Americans on social media? And the White House had an office. And I don't know that it's fair for me to lay all this at the feet of the FBI, but they would be the arm that would pursue something like this at the Department of Justice. I just don't sense a willingness from the Trump administration to go back over these roads and pursue this stuff. And we could talk all day about the COVID era and the mandates and the throttling and the social media wing that even Karine Jean-Pierre admitted at a White House press briefing. Yeah, we got a room back here where we actively contact
before Karine, you know, was Jen Psaki, you know, the redhead. She actually admitted in a press conference one day.
Oh, maybe that's who it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what it was.
To one question, she made, yes, we've contacted Facebook, and we're literally giving them the accounts that we think are spreading disinformation.
And this is the thing: if you're not going to pursue this kind of abridgment of our God-given freedoms, then it's just going to happen again. It's going to be a different scenario, but it's going to be the same kind of outcome. And again, this conversation today is meant to go through the FBI and see what they've been up to.
Well, let's start there. But
okay.
Under that previous regime and under the Biden FBI, we know from the Twitter files that the FBI had as many as 70 agents, up to 100, including the CIA agents that they had, that were officing in the Twitter building.
Damn, bro.
I mean,
that's where they would show up for work every day.
Right. And
I don't think I've ever heard that. Holy crap,
that was revealed from the Twitter files themselves.
I remember that. Wow.
And so they were obviously there. They were watching and monitoring. Look, because social media is also used for a lot of nefarious things like child porn and other types of illegal activities. There could and in fact be legitimate reasons, but we also know out of the words of their own mouths. I go back to Jen Psaki saying that with her outside voice, is that we're talking to Facebook about these accounts that we believe are spreading COVID disinformation. That sort
Do
of
we
thing.
know the fate of specific agents that that
No.
carried this stuff out? No.
Not that at all. So I mean, look, when we look at those things, we have to look at them fairly as we can. We look for the plausible explanations first, but then we also know that during that time that this was a main focus was to take down, suppress, throttle the account. And I being and having a I didn't have an account with millions of followers, but I had tens of thousands of followers at the time, and I saw what they did to my reach. And I went from the average article that I would post back in those days. This is prior to 2020, especially. Now, so look, the difference between 2016 and 2020 for me was about 20,000 followers. So I go from 20,000 to 40,000 during that time period. And so even when I only had 20,000 and less, my average piece that I would put out would had the views or impressions or however you want to describe it of as many, an average of 150,000 people saw the stuff that I put out. After they started throttling me, the same articles with twice the following would get a few hundred or maybe a couple of thousand. I mean,
and that was down from, you said 150,000
as an average.
Holy crap, bro!
I mean, because back in those days, Facebook had really good back end, support tracking. You could see that, and then as they started the throttling and reach restriction regime, they started taking our tools away and giving us less and less and less. But we could still see the number of impressions per post, per article, whatever we were putting out, and so by the time we were a couple of months into the COVID thing, they had just destroyed me.
Sure.
And I'm not. This is not the topic of today, but this was what was happening at the time, and even with a smaller following such as mine at the time of just a few tens of thousands of people, it was very evident what they were doing.
Yeah.
And of course, then when you start talking about trying to monetize that, it was just impossible, because I couldn't. Even though I was actively trying to move people over to my real blog site at the time, I couldn't reach them. You could.
Oh yeah, right. But see, now Kenneth Parker, when I said I don't remember the FBI agents in there, he's like, yeah. I said I forgot about that. If I even knew it to begin with, everyone forgot about the Twitter files. No trials yet. This is what I'm saying, man. It's like if anybody, well, I don't know. I'm not on the inside of the J. Edgar Hoover building. I don't know this for a fact, but you would assume that you would at least have access to who these agents were that were tasked with enforcing these unconstitutional rules, these mandates from on high. And maybe they have, and we just don't know. Maybe they're part of the people that have been swept out the door. But if that's the case, please make a bigger show of that so that we know that you're taking care and you're taking out the trash there.
Well, here's what we are seeing. I mean, we just recently, YouTube a week or so ago talked about how they were going to start allowing accounts that they had actually shut off. They would start bringing those back. Right. Obviously, when Elon bought Twitter, turned it into X, he started bringing people back on that had been locked.
But that feels like a Twitter decision, not an FBI win.
Right? No, that's not a win there. But then, Facebook, Meta, they have relaxed standards somewhat. In fact, even now, even though I have a fraction of the reach on Facebook that I used to have. But I get little notices from them all the time in my notifications that, hey, because you've been posting quality content, we have increased your reach by 60%. Well, 60% of 1% of what I used to have is not a big deal, but so it's still not back to what it used to be. But
see, this FBI put the full weight and force of its law enforcement branch against people like you, whose biggest crime, let's just go there. Let's go to January 6th.
Go to my big,
yeah. This is your magnus opus. What was it called? I don't even know what it's called. Anyway, this is when you went into the Capitol, and they have no problem turning so to speak. Well, I guess in some cases it's not just hyperbole to say turn the guns of the government on you, and on individuals like grandmas that were just taking an unscheduled tour of the Capitol that day.
Yeah.
But it's like you get to a point where you're like, there's never going to be any justice, and so that brings me to a tweet that caught my eye a few weeks back from you, where you were quote tweeting something that Director Kash Patel had said, where he said the 274 FBI agents were thrown into crowd control on January 6th against FBI standards. That failure was on corrupt leadership. Thanks to agents stepping up, the truth is coming out. What did Steve Baker say? Steve Baker said, this is 1000% bullshit. No one has had more time in the Capitol CCTV viewing room than me and my partner. Is it Hanneman?
Joe Hanneman. Yeah.
Joe Hanneman. We've never seen a single frame of video showing plainclothes FBI assisting uniformed LEOs in either crowd control or protecting the Capitol. What do you mean there, Steve?
Okay, well, first of all, let's be completely clear on this, because this was the first post I have ever made on X in the years that I've been there that I didn't get ratioed. I still had, a higher percentage supporting me than otherwise, but this is the first time I had hundreds of people coming out against this post because they misunderstood what I said. It was bullshit, not what Kash said, because what Kash said was correct. According to the report and according to what they discovered, was that, in fact, these 274 agents had been called to the Capitol to do crowd control. Now, that is correct. But what I was calling bullshit on is that they did crowd control, because they didn't. There's just no video evidence of them. Now, first of all, the agents that were showing up that day were showing up late, the ones that were part of this 274. Now, let's not confuse that with any possibility that other agents were already there doing other things. But the reality is that this 274 that were called after the violence erupted, after, the shit show had begun, was these 274 agents were... And you have to get into the understanding the difference between plain clothes and undercover. First of all, FBI doesn't have uniforms, okay? Unless they're...
Yeah, it's khakis and polo shirts.
Right. Unless, well, I mean, now when they show up at your house for a knock and talk, because you posted something they don't like on Facebook or Twitter, because they still do that, by the way. And when they do show up, they might be in jeans and a flannel shirt, whatever. They still have to identify themselves. But when they are called to an event, the one thing that they typically do, like this, is they all have ballistic vests, and so they go grab those out of their car, out of their office, or go home and grab wherever they keep them, and they put their ballistic vests on. It clearly says FBI across the front and the back. They display their badges. They've got their sidearm on. They don't show up incognito. That's the difference between plain clothes and undercover. Undercover is a completely different designation, and it's an actual operation if they're on an undercover operation. Now, there's also the typical thing that happens at a large event like this is they do show up with counter surveillance teams who are also not identified. And that's something we want at big political events. We don't want people that are doing nefarious things not being seen. One of the, as I say, as a libertarian, the only moral function of a government is to protect its citizens from force and fraud. And so it's whether it's showing up at a Taylor Swift concert with 20,000 people, or if it's showing up at the Capitol with, 500,000 people on January 6th, or if it's showing up at any other big rally, left, right, center, it doesn't matter if it's the women's pink hat vagina march, or if it's Glenn Beck rally at the Capitol with 600,000 people. It doesn't matter. We want them there because we don't want people sneaking in with bomb bags and...
Sorry. I'm sorry. When I hear the phrase pink hat vagina march, I have to start drinking. From the grimace glass. Continue, please.
Yeah. So it's something that we want, and we want them to show up with their counter surveillance teams to keep us safe. from the nefarious characters. Unfortunately, according to the January 6th Select Committee, Pelosi's Select Committee, and from the guy who was the assistant director in charge of the Washington field office at the time, Steve D'Antuono, they did not deploy counter surveillance teams that day. Now, that seems incomprehensible, considering that, that's one of the things that they're really good at in Washington through the Park Police. That's the Department of Interior. They're able to monitor and see how many people are coming to town for an event.
Right.
They can actually do that. They can, it's how many flights are coming, how many planes are booked, trains are booked, buses are booked, hotels are booked. They can get an estimate on how many people are coming. And one of the things that they did not do was declare that a national security event. I think they call it an SSE. I forget what the other S is for. But the point being is they did not declare it an NSSE day, whereas, by contrast, our friend that was just recently assassinated,
Charlie Kirk,
Charlie, his funeral in Arizona was declared an NSSE, and they had counter surveillance out there to keep the crowds, the audience, safe as they were arriving and attending the event. And so it's incomprehensible that January 6th was not, and I'll tell you why.
Okay, thanks for reading my mind.
All right, for starters, okay, you had the big rally there. Now, the big rally was put on by an organization called Women for America First. All right, they actually organized, pulled the permits for the rally at the Ellipse, that's in front of the White House, where Trump would be speaking. And according to the rules of COVID at the time, they could only put on the permits 5,000 attendees. That was the COVID restriction, was the limit they could have, even though they knew that tens of thousands more than that, if not hundreds of thousands, would be attending. As they're actually filling out the paperwork, they are being dictated to by the clerks there at the Department of Interior. No, you can't put that many people on there. You can only say, if you say more than 5,000, you're going to be turned down for your event. Now, how do I know that? Because I've interviewed the WFAF team. All right. So we know that they had to do that. And so anyway, in the days leading up, because they were aware that more people were going to be coming, they did expand the permit from total of ultimately 15,000 to 30,000. And of course, infinitely larger number than that showed up. And then in addition to that, there were 6 additional permits that had been signed off on by the Capitol Police Assistant Chief Yogananda Pittman. She had signed off on 6 protests, what they call First Amendment protests, on the Capitol grounds that day. So we knew that there were other events that were going to be taking place at the Capitol that day. Over that entire course, because there were events the night before on the 5th, we know that there was something on the order of 82, and this is between all the departments, Metropolitan Police, Capitol Police, Park Police, which is, as I said, the Department of Interior, that something on the order of 82 different protest events had been approved and permits issued for over those 2 days.
But we don't need extra security.
But we don't need to declare that a national security event and have FBI surveillance on the ground, according to Stephen D'Antuono, and in his actual transcript from his under oath interview with the original Select Committee. So I'm getting into the weeds here a little bit, but I'm trying to establish that the fact that there was a lot more behind the scenes intricacies related to January 6th than the general population knows about. And so that's one of those things. And so going back to the FBI's posture that day in these 274, the reason I called bullshit on the tweet that Director Patel sent out was not calling him a liar. And a lot of people thought I was calling him a liar. I was not. The report that he was referencing was correct. These 274 were called in for crowd control, but FBI doesn't do crowd control. They're not trained for crowd control. They don't have the equipment for crowd control, like the Metropolitan Police, you know, the RoboCops and all the, you know, the, you know, all the gear and the shields and all that kind of stuff. And so when they got called in, they showed up the best they could, but they were clearly marked. They were plain clothes, but they weren't undercover.
And they arrived after the Capitol was emptied out. Am I wrong about that?
Well, a bunch of them did. I actually have them on my own camera, a large number of them showing up after 6 p.m. Yeah. But I think if I were to, by and large, characterize when they started arriving was probably after 4 o'clock, around 4 o'clock, when the first of them started coming out. Now, that also does not mean that the FBI was not present, because they were. Their tactical teams were there. We saw them clearly. I saw them, captured them on my own camera as well. We see FBI and ATF tactical teams in the Capitol immediately after Ashley Babbitt was shot. Mm-hmm. We see and know that from our own reporting that it was the FBI tactical teams medics who were delivering life-saving attempts to Ashley Babbitt at the south entrance exit there at on the lower level of the Capitol. I know that because I walked right past her as the FBI tactical teams were doing that. I saw her with my own eyes, and then I videotaped her extraction from the Capitol down on the gurney down as tactical units were escorting her gurney towards the ambulance at the time. That's my video. Mm-hmm. And so anybody that's seen that, you know where it came from. And so the point being is that they were there, but this 274 and the bullshit call was on the idea that they were providing crowd control. Right. Okay. They didn't.
Okay. I will just warn you here, because I know that you've got an engagement following this. I have so many questions, Steve, and I literally haven't gotten past page 1. So let me try to run through these, and let's see if you can give us an idea of if there's going to be any kind of justice for any of these cases here. Ray Epps, he's in the clear completely, right? Is there anything that Kash Patel could even do if he wanted to right now with Ray Epps?
Well, I mean, when everybody says that Ray Epps is a Fed, mm-hmm.
He's an asset, right?
I am personally convinced that he was an asset.
Okay,
that's my opinion. Mm-hmm. Do I have the kill shot on that? No, but look, the fact that Ray Epps was obviously operating as an agent provocateur that day, he was more vocal than anybody else that we know of, caught on camera the night before and the day of, rallying the people to go into the Capitol. And then in addition to that, yeah,
I was just going to say, think of this. The same people that wanted President Trump taken off of social media because he's so inflammatory with his mean tweets are the same people that have no problem justifying and ignoring, I should say, someone like a Ray Epps who is actually there instigating the crowd.
And that's why, I'm saying allegedly, possibly, potentially, because even Fox News got scared off from, I think they got sued by Ray Epps, actually. The point being is that not only do we have his actions, which additionally included when the big metallic rimmed sign was passed over the top of the crowd and shoved into the Capitol Police on the West Front barricade, he reached up and he touched it, just as others did. Others were charged that did the same exact thing that he did. I mean, if you got something coming over your head, your first response is to do this. He did it. Others did it. Others were charged with a felony for using that as a weapon against the police. Ray Epps was not charged with that, even though he did exactly the same thing. And instead, he got a slap on the wrist. He got 6 months probation, $500 fine. He didn't have to come to the Capitol for a trial. He was able to plead out to the single misdemeanor. And other people who did far less than he did had their lives destroyed.
And this is my point, is let's just say, and I don't know, let's just say that there's nothing that the FBI today and Kash Patel can do to Ray Epps. Fine. Kash Patel is the guy who said on day one that we needed to release the Epstein files, and we're going to get into that. He's the guy who said we need an office that just declassifies stuff. There's too much stuff that is classified, top secret, blah, blah, blah. So you know what? Call a press conference. Everybody's going to show up, Director Kash. And I respectfully am suggesting that you clear the air on stuff like this. Tell us who Ray Epps was. If he was an asset, tell us that. You know, it just feels like more of the same. Like he's covering for something else.
But Ray Epps may not have been an asset for the FBI.
Yeah. Okay. So then.
Okay. All right. Okay. So
no, you're right. This is why you're the journalist and I'm just the blatherer.
No, let's talk about that just for a second.
Okay. Keep in mind, 5 more pages.
I know. I've been very open in recent months that I don't believe that this was an FBI operation. I'm not saying that the previous FBI under the Biden administration's DOJ/FBI did not participate in some level of cover-up about certain aspects of that day. But I believe that ultimately what started the fire that day, that it was a DOD operation. And that is still a lot of work yet to present through our research to finally bring all of the details and the facts and the evidence about that to the public. But I've been working on that since 3 days after January 6th. That
yeah.
And so it is possible. And I'm not characterizing or trying to say with any authority who Ray Epps was working for or was paid by that day, because I don't know. You know, but there's just too many circumstantial things that you have to look at a character like him, and not just him. There's many others that were very active in the role of provocateur and working people.
And let's just say that only a few of those pan out to match up with my gut and many in this audience's gut. You want to talk about extending a connection with the MAGA base that elected Donald Trump and this new team, this new administration, then just come out and level with us. Because right now it feels like, and this is where I'm not the journalist, remember, it feels like there's more of a covering for the FBI's reputation than to just admitting the truth. But again, this is my opinion, you know, but I understand. And you do the dirty work of actually being the journalist. And I appreciate that.
Let's go to the beginning of the
5 pages.
The Kash. Yeah, I know. The Kash Patel Dan Bongino regime. Let's go to the beginning of that.
Okay.
When they were nominated, we
hold that thought real quick. I just have 2 quick J6 related questions, and then you go wherever you want to go. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so help me. That whole we don't do perp walks. There's a guy right there. His name is Steve Baker, who got the perp walk. But the way that J6ers were treated and the way they were put in play, things like solitary confinement in rancid conditions, and many of them were led to commit suicide over what their government put them through. Even if it is a press conference just to apologize to the families of how this government treated them, these Americans, somebody in this administration needs to do that on behalf of the last administration. But here's my question for you. And this is an opinion, I guess. In your opinion, Steve Baker, did the J6 committee withhold evidence at their little primetime event series?
They withheld evidence. They manipulated evidence. They created evidence out of thin air, and then they destroyed evidence.
Then where are the perp walks for them? Where is Liz Cheney's handcuff trip from the car to the building?
She got a pardon from Biden.
That's right. Damn it. That's right.
Yeah.
Never mind.
All
right. You know what? That just blew out about a page and a half. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So go to the beginning of the Trump administration and go down the road you were about to take us, please.
So when Kash and Dan, if I can be informal, were nominated, we cheered that. We wanted that. We wanted it to happen. Not only myself, but an army of retired old FBI agents from the good old days, whistleblowers who thought that they would have their backs.
That's a whole page to itself. Continue.
Wanted that to happen. When the nominations were confirmed, we gave them a standing ovation. We were ready to roll with them, and this is where it gets hard. Okay. Both Cash and Dan have ample history of talking about the FBI and the corruption that was there.
Which is why I wanted them in their positions.
And yeah, exactly. And all the way to the pinnacle of being, Kash Patel's book, Government Gangsters, also his famous statement about wanting to first day turn the Hoover building into a museum of the deep state. We've had, God knows, there's probably thousands of hours of Bongino's criticisms of FBI and other, government agencies, intelligence services, things of that nature, as well during his podcast years and his television years on Fox. And so there's a tremendous amount of precedent there in their history for us being, as you said, very excited about that. And then all of a sudden, it's like the brakes were put on. Now, they have come on television many times and explained why we need to wait, why we need to be patient, give us time. The deep state complex is much deeper, darker, and more impenetrable than we thought.
I don't doubt it.
I don't know. It's that part they're exactly correct about. And this is why, even though, and I'll say this quite frankly and quite openly, even though we know that they think I'm at war with them, that I also have been very clear in saying that the depth of corruption, the depth of the deep state actors within the Bureau is so deep, dark, and entrenched that they have to work their way through that. And also because I have sources within and without and close to that they all acknowledge that. In fact, I'm not going to name names, but I mean, I have had just very recently 2 extensive conversations with people on the inside that say to me, Steve, you have no idea how hard it is right now for us to get anything done, because there's such a large percentage of that previous cult that still controls the narrative, access to information. They are stonewalled. They hit brick walls every single day. They make, you would think that the director and deputy director could just say, demand, give me this information or you're fired. And it's certainly infinitely more complex than that, especially with all the complexity of the various departments and sub agencies and within the FBI. Now, the one thing that I think that Dan and Cash have not excelled at is in their messaging and their public relations. They've failed many times in that regard. You can't continue to just go on television and just say, trust us, bro. You can't go on there and say, hey, in 2 weeks, you're going to see the most mind-blowing things that you've ever seen. I've seen it with my own eyes. And when we reveal it to you, you're just going to be gobsmacked. And then 5 months later, we still haven't seen it.
Thank you. I was going to bring that up. Yes.
All right. I have been very critical about their messaging, very critical about their PR, very critical not only publicly in my statements about it, but I've also been critical to those I talk to within the Bureau who get that information to them. I'm going to give you one example. When we were doing, when I was first brought into the investigation that Blaze Media was doing on Congressman Corey Mills, And the reason why they brought me on is because there seemed to be a rogue FBI agent operating outside of the FBI auspices in her investigation into Corey Mills. So I started investigating the investigator. Well, once I reached my own brick wall and what I was able to discover directly, I started reaching out to the FBI directly to try and see if, in fact, there was an open investigation into Corey Mills, Congressman Corey Mills. And the first thing that I did is I acted as a citizen. I didn't lie about who I was, but this particular agent works out of what they call the Orlando Resident Agency, which is part of the Tampa field office. So I contacted the Tampa field office and I told them my name, told them who I worked for, Blaze Media, and that I had the possibility of having found a public corruption issue. And I needed to speak to a supervisory special agent to report a possible public corruption crime. And I was stonewalled. So then I took it to the national intake.
What's the timeline on this?
Oh, this is going back 3 or 4 months ago. It certainly was after. It was probably in May, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So I took it to the national intake. I asked to speak to a public corruption SSO SSA supervisory special agent. I was stonewalled there. They would not give me one. And because I'm a resident of North Carolina, I eventually took it to your drinking again. I want some, but
I feel judgment, Steve.
Yeah, I should have brought some.
This is absolutely not a sponsor, but more than welcome to be. The Lone Star vodka is the smoothest ever. Just want you to know.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. I actually saw that in the store in Texas just the other day.
Get you some.
So I took it to, because I'm a resident of North Carolina, I did the same thing. I called the Charlotte field office of the FBI and I tried to report it there. I got stonewalled again. I went back to national intake, and then I remember it was on a Thursday morning, and I woke up at 9, and at 9 a.m., as soon as everybody was in their offices on the East Coast at 9 a.m., I was so pissed off. I happened to have a couple of phone numbers in my phone. One of them was Kash Patel's, and one of them was, because I've spoken to him before, and one of them was his personal assistant. So I sent a detailed message over to both of them at the same time, copied both of them, and within minutes I had a response, and they began looking into the situation. Look, I'm being very complimentary right now. I was very excited that they began to move on it. And when we were in about halfway through the second day, and I'm talking to them a lot over those 2 days, they're asking questions, I'm answering questions, I'm giving them more information. And then I finally said this. I said, as you know, I said, our grand patriarch at the Blaze, Glenn Beck, is somebody that really believes in Kash. He talks about it all the time. I trust Kash Patel. In fact, it was Glenn Beck who introduced me to Kash Patel there at Blaze Studios one day, about a year and a half or a little more than a year. Maybe we're in October now. It's probably about 2 years ago now. And
it was December of 23, I believe, when he
that's when it was.
Did the interview in his office where he talked about day one, blah, blah, blah.
Well, when they walked out of the office that day, I happened to be walking by, and we had just published a big article on a J6 article. And Glenn grabbed me and said, "Hey, I want to introduce you to Kash." He said, "Go print out your article." And so I went over to somebody in the think tank and had them print out the 16-page article, and I handed it to Kash. We exchanged phone numbers, and that's how we were connected. And so toward the end of business the next day, I asked his personal assistant, I said, "Look, Glenn believes in Kash, all right? And I don't want to mess this up. I didn't say mess it up, by the way. I use a different 4-letter word. And and I said, if I've got it wrong, just tell me. and we'll back off of this story. If we're on the right trail, send me up a smoke signal of some sort, because as you know, for years, anytime you ask the FBI a question, they only respond with one thing: sorry, we can't comment on an ongoing investigation. Well, they've spent a day and a half talking to me, and they haven't yet said that about this Corey Mills rogue agent thing that I'm investigating. And finally, near the end of the day, the second day on a Friday before close of business, they sent us an unprecedented response, which we published through theblaze.com in the story about this rogue agent. And what they told us is that we have no information. We have no detail. We know nothing about an investigation into the congressman, which, by the way, would be impossible for the 7th floor of the Hoover building to not know, because a investigation into a sitting member of Congress is called it's a sensitive investigative matter. And so therefore they would know. And in fact, look, they're only a couple of keystrokes away from, it's not like the director, the deputy director, the general counsel don't have access to whether or not there's a real investigation into a member of Congress. It takes a lot more approval for an agent to begin. I mean, an agent has to go through a lot of layers of approval. It's got to go straight to the top in order for that to happen. From what I understand, in a sim like that, it has to actually be approved even by the Attorney General's office. So the fact that they wouldn't know about it would be incomprehensible. And so I felt like that was our smoke signal, and we sent it up and we published based on that, our story. And so we haven't been proven wrong on that yet. They've never come to us and said that you weren't. But my point of the whole precursor, to where we're at right now is that we have had favorable interactions with the 7th floor. And then we have, as I was talking about before, the other PR problems, the more public, statements. The worst so far, obviously, the worst mistake that's come so far from Kash Patel's own X account was him saying that they had the subject in custody.
We got our guy.
Yeah, to Charlie Kirk's murder. And he used the subject. He used the word subject, not the word suspect. Now, when I've criticized that tweet, I've gotten in a lot of trouble because people say, all he said was suspect. No, he said subject. We got our guy. And then an hour and a half later, he had to retract that. It was not only a mistake, but it was a mistake that typically would not be made by law enforcement. I pointed that out. That doesn't mean I'm at war with them. What it means is that I'm not going to stop calling balls and strikes and fouls just because we want to believe in those guys, right? Because we still do.
Absolutely.
We still believe that if they are every single day, as they tell us, actively working to take down the deep state within their own bureau, then we support that. But you can't make mistakes like that. You can't make mistakes like the Axios leak on a Sunday.
Okay, that was going to be my next question.
Epstein files, that was
on the 4th of July weekend.
You talk about an unforced error.
Yeah.
And they just got obliterated for it, and justifiably so. And in case
people forgot, I mean, that was the weekend that we got the Department of Justice memo that just said, yeah, there's nothing going on with Epstein. That guy, what a crazy cat working all by himself.
And then they tried to distance themselves from it by saying, oh, that was DOJ. That wasn't us. No, you are DOJ.
Yeah.
It is impossible to go forward with that and not be participating in that. And in fact, Axios said that it was a joint release by DOJ and FBI.
So real quick, Ghislaine, I can never pronounce her name. Ghislaine Maxwell, why is she still in prison? I mean, she's not going to get her pardon. She's not going to get her day in the Supreme Court. What's again, this is a whole nother topic, but it's under that umbrella of day one, man. We're going to release the Epstein files. Hell, there are no Epstein files now, from what I understand. In fact, to quote Dan Bongino, there is no there.
Well,
of course, he was talking about the Epstein cell video, maybe. Hell,
Okay.
I don't know.
The only thing I can respond to is this: is I am told through our sources within the intelligence community that the FBI does not have those. Now, this is despite the fact that Cash told Glenn Beck in December of 23, there's a black book and it's in the FBI director's desk and we have it. Despite the fact that Pam Bondi said we've got, all of this, despite the fact that they've seen tens of thousands of hours of video, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, so hold on. If there was a black book, as Cash claimed, and let's just say everything's been destroyed. Let's just say there is no evidence available to Cash and Dan and the rest of the good guys at the FBI, then come out and say, I knew exactly what I was talking about in December of 2023 in Glenn Beck's office. By the time I got sworn in and into the office, they had destroyed everything related to that. Instead of, nope, nothing here. Sorry.
Well, what I am told is that if there is such a thing as a Excel spreadsheet of the list of Johns and otherwise individuals that Epstein marketed the girls to, which is incomprehensible that there's tens of thousands of hours worth of video as they claim, and he's the only one tapping the young ladies.
Somebody should do the math. Somebody should do the damn math on that. How many hours they claim of videotape there are and how many hours of time passed from when Epstein started his deal until he was caught.
But these are the things that make the American people's head explode because we instinctively know that math doesn't work.
Right.
And we instinctively know that you can't convict Maxwell of a crime in which there are no buyers to that crime. Right. And apparently if she was the solicitor and she was acting as the madam and Epstein was the only client, I mean, that's ultimately what they're claiming. It doesn't work for the American people. And so it's incomprehensible that either the public relations people on the 7th floor of the Hoover building or the leadership itself can't look at that and go, yeah, they're not going to buy that. That's like, no, that's a bridge too far. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, after 2 or 3 of those, I sent a message to somebody I know in the 7th floor. And I said, you guys need a new PR guy. I'll take I'll take an SGE, special government employee, like Elon was for a while.
Oh yeah.
I said, I'll be an SGE. I'll come to work for you for, 103 days or whatever the contract is for an SGE. And I'll help you clean up your, your public relations, because this is not working.
Right.
And again, these are balls, strikes, fouls that I'm calling, whereas they may think that I'm at war with them. Now, then we get into the whistleblower situation. I may have been at war with them on that a little bit,
Yeah, we need to talk about that for sure.
Yeah, and we can go as deep into that as you want to, if you want to beat that dead horse.
Yeah. Oh hell, I got so many dead horses here yet to get to. But one more question though on the Epstein front. I can understand. I mean this sincerely. I can understand if the president of the United States doesn't want something pursued or discussed. And I understand that because he has said, are you still talking about the Epstein files? Yeah, we're talking about global elites who make decisions that affect our lives that quite frankly are probably pedophiles, and there's evidence of this, and it might answer questions of some weird decisions that have been made for the last 20 or 30 years. Yeah, we're still on this, holding them accountable under the law. Absolutely, Mr. President, with all due respect, and thank you for your attention to this matter, sir. But I can understand if you are a Kash Patel or a Dan Bongino and the president of the United States says, don't pursue this.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to make a couple of leaps here. I can understand that you can't pursue that, and that there's no way in hell you can talk about it publicly, short of resigning and then going out there. And Trump supporters the diehards are really going to make sure they line up behind the president no matter what. Let's say that. So I can understand if that's not if the president of the United States is telling you to not pursue something, and at the same time you're not able to talk about it and explain it. But if that is the case, do you have a hunch, a theory, any idea why President Trump would not want this to be a priority when he campaigned on it? And I'm of the mindset, as are so many other people, that if he's implicated, the Democrats would have already come out with it, because they've tried to kill this man multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
They would have, of course, brought that up,
Right.
or they would have manufactured it in the meantime.
Yeah.
Why would he not want them to pursue that if that is the case?
Look, the people that, and believe me, I still see it in social media. I'm not nearly as active on Facebook as I used to be, but all of my lifelong friends from the music industry who are leftists and Democrats and the like are still, wanting to see the Epstein list files, whatever. I didn't even finish answering that question, by the way. Yeah, we were chasing other rabbits, but what I am told, I'll go back to that. What I am told from the intelligence community is that if there is such a thing as a spreadsheet, or there is a stack of files, or whether they're on a computer or they're in a burn bag somewhere, is that they're not held by the FBI anyway, that they're held by the CIA, and that's another.
Well, Ratcliffe looks like so go to them. Hell, we'll do a show about the CIA.
Well, they're even worse than the FBI. So if you talk about entrenched deep state, I mean, if I were to throw out numbers that I hear from my conversations with all of the players in the intelligence community, they would estimate that something on the order of 60+% of current employees of the FBI are deep staters and leftists and working against the Trump America First of Virginia. But if we're talking about CIA, it's something on the order of 80%.
Holy crap, bro. I'm never going to get to these questions. Okay. You had mentioned the Kash Patel tweet. We've got our guy. Can we just talk about the texts real quick? And I don't want this. I'm going to have larger conversations about the Charlie Kirk assassination. But have you heard anything? Do you have any thoughts on those texts? Because I feel like they just seem so inauthentic.
Which text are we talking about?
The text that the FBI released that Tyler Robinson sent to his furry lover guy.
My initial thought on them, because they were so well written, so well punctuated, and they weren't written like a Discord chat group would write things with all the typical Gen Z abbreviations.
Squad car, old man.
All of these things is that it could very well be that some FBI analyst got it and just interpreted it. They
rewrote it.
Yeah, nobody's going to understand this in the way they write, so
I understand that.
We'll clean it up.
Exactly. And that is where I land right now, is that there were texts, but they went through an FBI rewrite.
Yeah.
Then say that.
Yeah.
Cleaned up so that you could understand, since we know that you people don't know what LOL really means.
Yeah, well,
just tell us this shit, man.
Right. I mean, that's what that was my initial impression, and you're exactly right. And my second impression was publish them both side by side. This is the way they wrote it, and this is what it means. Okay.
Yes.
This is what it means for boomers, so you can read it, all right, and understand it.
And Xers.
Yeah.
We need that help too. Yes. Okay.
But look, and when it comes to Charlie Kirk, I am not buying into the conspiracy theories. I'm just going to put that out there. I think that we're being told from, and again, this is from as close as I can be to I'm not on the inside, but I have enough sources that tell me, look, it is what it is being publicized to be. I mean, it is him shooting from the rooftop. He got a hell of a lucky shot off. And, look, you're talking about you're talking about a kid that lives in that part of the country. They know how to deer hunt. They know how to take a 200-yard shot. It's not a difficult thing.
Yeah.
And he was probably aiming for the center of his head, but he didn't calculate for the drop rate for the wind, and it hit a little lower.
Okay. Well, I mean, and we'll have a larger discussion, and you're welcome to be a part of that if you want to be. But that is something that I am so looking forward to seeing play out in court. I was in high school and college during the O.J. Simpson stuff, and I kept tabs on that every day. But this is the first trial of my life that I want to watch every damn minute of that trial. I want to absorb everything because I don't know the answer. Now, if someone came to me right now and asked me, okay, you got to make a decision. What is it? Then I would go with that story. Yes. But there are so many questions that I have that I need answered.
This is the last and the only thing I'll say about Charlie Kirk today, because we need to move on. But it is very simple. I have sources within the IC who absolutely despise the FBI. Trust the FBI. They don't like Cash and Dan. And yet they are the same one telling me right now, they're getting it right.
Okay.
Good.
That's good to hear. I don't want a large conspiracy. I would like something in this freaking world to be cut and dry.
Yeah.
Okay. In August, let's go back to August, way back a month ago. And I will say this was only after intense social media pressure to reinstate the honorable FBI whistleblowers. Cash said publicly that, hey, everything's good. I mean, this is good stuff. Now, I don't know that. Well, let me just stop there. Chuck Grassley's office has been instrumental in helping these whistleblowers get back into their rightful positions.
He shouldn't have had to be.
He should not have had to be.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah. No. I was just going to say the deadline to reinstate a lot of those whistleblowers has come and gone. And they're not back in their old post or any post for that matter. Yeah. And it's absolutely an unmitigated disgrace.
Yeah.
And we all knew that it was going to play out like this.
Yeah.
This has been what individuals have been through that stood up and did the right thing and defended our government and pointed out the corruption. They have been in this story, man, Steve, this plays out time and time again for whistleblowers and people who do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it makes me sick as an American for what they go through and are still going through and their families go through. And it's like, why the hell? You want to know why we don't have an overwhelming number of good and honorable people in our government? It's because the ones that are honorable and do the right thing get treated like this. And somebody please explain to me an out for Kash Patel on this.
Well, let's go back to something else that we were talking about earlier when you're talking about the deep state element of the FBI and why it's so hard to change. I mean, the FBI in and of itself, and we constantly refer to it as a cult. And there's a reason why. And I got the notion of that and started kind of looking into it myself when our friend J. Michael Waller, who wrote the book.
Look at there. Look at this. There's one of the whistleblowers right there. Hi, Steve. I hope you're well.
So our friend J. Michael Waller, who wrote the book Big Intel, goes into the history of both the CIA and the FBI, and he calls it a cult. And it is there's a certain amount of, once you get that badge and you get that designation as an FBI agent, then there's a certain amount of prestige that goes with that. When you go to a dinner party or you're at a wedding reception and people introduce you as an FBI agent, all of a sudden you're perceived as the most interesting person in the room, and so after you've had that mental.
Wait, no, this is the most important topic of the day. You have a dog too?
There is a dog barking. Yes, there is. You heard it.
No, okay. I just want to make sure it wasn't mine. I was like,
Right.
wait a minute, what's going on? I'm sorry. Okay, so once you get introduced as an FBI, like, aha, look at me, I'm an FBI agent.
Yeah. And so, but it, it certainly extends much deeper than that. It goes much deeper than that. Then you become, a part of the system, and you're indoctrinated into it. And then from the earliest days in the academy, and maybe Steve Friend will pop up and confirm this, is one of the first things that you're told, if not the first day or the first week, is that you can, almost everything that you do wrong, if you commit an infraction, just admit it. If you do something wrong, take your disciplinary slap on the wrist, whether it's a suspension or whatever, and just we can get past that. But the one thing you cannot do is embarrass the Bureau. And whistleblowing, by its very nature, embarrasses the Bureau. And you're embarrassing the hierarchy. You're embarrassing the leadership, whether it's your leadership in your own field office or if it goes up higher. I just recently spent 9 hours interviewing one of the most highly decorated FBI agents in the 100+ year history of the Bureau, and he went through a whistleblowing period. He survived it, but they did everything in their power to destroy his life. Now, this is not one of the current whistleblowers. This goes back several years. This goes back before the Biden administration, but he went through the process, and they absolutely did everything in their power to destroy his life through the process. He survived it. He got out. He got his pension. He's okay. But they messed this guy up psychologically, and he's been through therapy for years as a result of what they tried to do to him. And we're going to be telling that story soon at the Blaze. But the point being is that in the one area that I've been most critical of the new regime is the whistleblower thing, not only because I've developed relationships with the whistleblowers, many of them, but also because of one particular thing that we know. It's been made public. They haven't hidden this thing, but these guys were very supportive of Cash's nomination.
Yes.
Information, and when he was confirmed, he sent them a message and said, couldn't have done it without you. And then it was like they were kicked to the curb and abandoned. Now, all right, let's go back to the. I know.
I want to break something right now.
I know, but let's go back to and try to look into the mind of what was going on there. Okay. So let's just say that reinstatement was more difficult than Cash just issuing a decree and signing a letter of reinstatement and demanding. Let's just say that it is, all right, because you got lawyers involved. You can't now you can no longer directly communicate with the whistleblowers as individuals. You have to go through the legal process. So you got to have your lawyers at the FBI contact their lawyers, blah, blah, blah. And, and then look, it's for some reason, it seems to me that as easy as it is to say, okay, you're a whistleblower, therefore you're insubordinate, therefore, because you're not following a direct order to go out and swat a grandma, a misdemeanor defendant on January 6th, then turn in your badge and your gun now. It seems it would be just as easy to go, okay, yeah, we made a mistake. Here's your badge and your gun. Come on back. But that's not what's happening. And we know it's not what's happening. And we know that they're putting them through hell right now in the reinstatement process. But we also know, and the most egregious part of it all is, even though there was a deal signed between the FBI and the individual whistleblowers for reinstatement and compensation, that they still haven't been paid a penny. They don't have their paycheck back yet.
So hold on, is this a case of Cash jumping the gun the way he did with the Charlie Kirk tweet, and he doesn't have control over all of this reinstatement, or is this just him bailing on an agreement?
We don't know. It took Marcus Allen a year before he got his compensation, but this is the matter. Okay. All right. I'm gonna try one more time. I'm gonna try. Now, my friends at the Suspendables, my friends in the, all these guys, they know how I feel about it. But I am speaking publicly, so I'm trying to give you the possibility of looking at things, from always begin with government incompetence before you get to the malfeasance and conspiratorial side of things.
I'm okay.
Always start there. And when we're talking about incompetence, all right, government incompetence, it grows exponentially based on the size of the government and the size of the agency that we're talking about.
Yep.
And so as a result of that, we're looking at singularly the most incompetent government on the planet to start with, just by the math, because it's the largest government on the planet. And this is one of the largest policing agencies on the planet. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, it's probably more incompetent than any others, just by virtue of the laws of, gravity. And so you start there. Okay. And I'm not a lawyer. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely not an expert in this particular topic. But I do know that if they wanted it to happen, it could happen.
Yes.
By priority.
Okay.
By prioritizing.
Thank you. So this is my thing. This is why I'm holding up two fingers, dude. Number one, either this is my take on Kash Patel and the whistleblowers. And Steve Friend, I see you in the chat. I do not want to cause any harm to you or your situation. So respond if you want to. Don't if you don't want to. The whistleblowers have not been put back in the rightful places, have not been given financial compensation, have not been given their clearance and their badges back yet because of one of two reasons. Either Kash Patel is a liar or Kash Patel is not in control of this situation. And if Kash Patel is not in control of the situation, then Kash Patel or somebody very close to him, such as an assistant that you referenced earlier, needs to be reaching out. I don't care if it's on the damn sly. Needs to be reaching out to these whistleblowers and say, brother, look, this is a message from Kash.
Okay.
This process is taking much longer than it should, but we want you to know that the director and the bureau have not forgotten about you. Please just be patient. I'm sorry we missed the deadline 2.5 fucking weeks ago, but it's in process. You have the director's word. Steve Friend, have you gotten any kind of communication from the director or someone representing the 7th floor of the damn J. Edgar Hoover building to ensure you and your family that you haven't been forgotten yet again? Because this shit has been going on for years. And why in the hell should we ever, as Americans, expect to have honorable men and women assume these roles when they see what happens when you stand up for the Constitution and do the right thing? Because time and time and time and time again, this is not the exception. This is the rule for how we treat these good people, right? These good men and women who stand up and do the right thing. And all of a sudden, we got blessed with the dream team that we wanted. Trump won. The guy we wanted to run the FBI gets in charge. And we still can't get these people in October? Come on. This is bullshit.
All right, I'll hold up two fingers now.
Yes, sir.
First of all, remember I talked about the PR problem, the 7th floor? This is a PR problem at its root. I have been told from the 7th floor, directly from the 7th floor, that it's out of their control and that they're fighting the deep state to get the whistleblowers reinstated, compensated, etc.
Totally plausible, Steve.
What I've been told.
They're telling you. Are they telling the public?
No, that's where I'm going.
Are they telling Steve Friend and his family?
But that's what they told me. Okay. All right. So there is nothing preventing Kash Patel or Dan Bongino or the general counsel or their public relations officers to come out and explain to the American people the mechanics of why they're struggling to get this done. If they would explain it to us in a way that we can all go, oh, okay, Okay.
Yep.
I
Sure.
understand that. Okay. That makes sense now. And now we can be patient. But just saying, trust me, bro,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to get done. Be patient.
So,
Stop criticizing us while you're waiting. No, come out and tell us what the
yeah.
problem is.
But see, here is, I'm sorry, did you get your two things in? I apologize.
Yeah, there it is.
So here's my thing. What's holding them back from doing that? What's stopping them from taking advantage of the bully pulpit? If Kash Patel called a press conference, everyone would be there with cameras and microphones rolling and listening. Absolutely. So then the next logical question from someone like me is, why aren't you doing this? What are you afraid of? Who's really in charge?
Yeah.
And if it's beyond your control to the point where you're afraid to proceed in doing the right thing, then resign with honor, then hold that press conference, and then go and tell all of the whistleblower families, this is why it didn't get done. I'm so sorry.
But if we're being honest in our analysis, and again, I'm putting this out there as a question, as much as I'm putting it out as a criticism, and it's a fair criticism, is that the point where the Suspendables, this group of FBI whistleblowers and whistleblowers from other agencies, lost their relationship with Dan Bongino, goes all the way back to the Mar-a-Lago raid, and the characterization by Dan as a influencer and podcaster at the time, along with the likes of Steve Bannon and I think Benny Johnson was on this train. We know that Julie Kelly was on the train. She actually started it. Was the analysis that the Mar-a-Lago raid was some sort of assassination attempt against the president. And the guys who should have known better, especially somebody like Dan, should have called her on that at the time rather than nodding along with her, that this was, that the situation was precipitated by this use of force clause included in the paperwork, which was the warrant, and
it was a standard template.
It was a template. It was a template situation. Mm-hmm. It's pre-printed. It's been pre-printed for 30 years. It's in every single document that every other law enforcement agency in America, at least, if not on the planet Earth, and in the first world nations, uses, and that this language was in fact just template language, and then they also. It's almost like it begged credulity that they would claim that this was an assassination attempt, or that there was going to be, they wanted a shootout at the Mar-a-Lago Corral between the Secret Service and the FBI that morning, because first of all, also in the documentation was that the Secret Service and the FBI were already in contact with one another for 3 days beforehand, working out the details and trying to figure out, okay, oh, damn it, we got to do this. We're ordered to do this. We have to do it. It wasn't like it was a raid, an unexpected raid. And then on top of that, President Trump, or at the time, candidate Trump, was in New Jersey. You think you're trying to make me believe that the Secret Service and the FBI didn't know where Trump and his family were at the time? Mm-hmm. And yet they took this idea of the shootout at the Mar-a-Lago Corral because of that use of force language that's template, pre-printed. It's a document. I've got it. I've got the document. It's page and page and page and page of all the stuff, the blank stuff that you have to fill out. But the pre-printed template language is the use of force policy, as it is in every single warrant that's ever executed. So that's where the Suspendables lost their relationship with Dan personally, was over that incident.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
That's correct. And that is something that if I ever had the opportunity to sit down with the deputy director, is I would go back and I would play him that exchange between Julie Kelly and himself on his show, and say, and I would just ask him, do you still stand by this? Now that you are at the Bureau and you get to see that this is pre-printed template language, do you still stand by your analysis?
Well, Well, let's talk about.
That's where the relationship was lost.
Interesting.
That's not where it was lost between Cash and them. They were fully on Cash's side all the way up until he seemingly abandoned them after he sent them that message that couldn't have done without you.
And I don't know if people realize this, and I hope they do now. I hope that they don't. They're not under the impression, since Cash tweeted in August that everything's fine and dandy. Nope, not a chance. As far as the whistleblowers go, and of course, Steve's reporting and my Twitter feed will continue to push for them.
Let me just say this one more thing about that situation.
Okay.
The reason why I shared that story is because what we don't want to believe is that there's some sort of personal animosity, vendetta still remaining there. We
sure don't want to believe that.
No, we don't.
It has been something that has moved the gears in Washington, D.C. for far too long, and for far too many similar situations like this to continue.
But it's a fair question, and if I don't ask the question, I'm not doing my job. That's the purpose of the press, is to put them on the hot seat and ask the hard questions. Not unlike what we've just. I think that's your dog this time. Or is that mine? I don't know.
Yeah, damn right, it's my dog.
And dog.
I knew this was going to happen because I knew my daughter's friend was getting here at 3:30, and I knew this was going to happen. So anyway, continue.
But this is what we're supposed to do, and that doesn't mean that we're at war with them. But unlike on the other side of the aisle, when they give them the pre-printed list of 16 questions you can ask, and then you ask a follow-up, and then they cuss you out and want to stop the interview because, I'm sorry, that follow-up question was not on my pre-printed list of approved press questions. We just saw that this week, in a CBS interview. And so that's not who we are, and that's not what we do. But it's also the same thing, and we're not doing our job if we don't call it out when they get butt hurt or they have too thin a skin, and then they reach out to us to complain about our coverage. That's no different than Jen Psaki, as we talked about at the very beginning of this podcast. Saying, hey, we're contacting Facebook about the accounts we don't like that are spreading disinformation about COVID. It's not what is supposed to happen. Now, does that happen every single day in Washington from every side? Yes, it does. Absolutely, it does. Left, right, and every other in between contacts the press every day to try to shape the narrative, to complain about the narrative, to complain about coverage, do this and that and other thing. Happens all the time.
Before I forget, Steve Friend there in the chat, he's got a podcast. You should follow him at Real Steve Friend and check out his show. And he might, who knows? I don't know if he'll talk about this whistleblower situation. I know his situation. No, I should say I don't know the intricacies of his situation. He may not talk about this, but you should at least listen to his podcast.
And you may not be done with it, but I'll close it out because I've said all I need to be about it. Here's my bottom line, and I'm basically reiterating what I said to make a point, and that's this. If there's some reason why the director cannot issue a proclamation and tell the damn field office where these guys were working at,
it's enraging. Take
them back in today.
Yes.
Give them their badge, give them their clearance, give them their gun, give them their paycheck today. And we'll worry about the past compensation as we work that out through the legal process, but call HR and give them their fucking paycheck.
And if our government isn't able to do that, then it's time to rethink the whole works, honestly, because it's going back to what you said. It's too big to do the right thing when it's so obvious. Okay.
And Keith, to finish that up, if you can't do that, just tell us why.
Tell us why. And if you can't tell us why, then goes back to what I said, resign with honor. And then tell us why. Okay, so
Right.
yeah, we know Steve Friend doesn't represent any government agency. Yeah. Okay, so I do want to focus on Dan. Okay, time out. How long does it take you to get ready to go out for like tonight? How long is it going to take you between this podcast and when you have to leave the house? How much time do you need?
It's actually, I'm leaving here at rush hour, so it's going to take me an hour to get there. So sorry.
So how much time left do you have with us?
I got 30 minutes.
30 minutes? Crap. All right, be very quick on these answers, even
All
if they're not thorough.
We'll make these lightning round.
Yes.
Go.
Good Lord, I got to have you back. The Maria Bartolomo interview, when she had Cash and Dan sitting down, they made some big promises, and then Dan did again on the Fox and Friends Curvy Couch in late May. And I remember one of the things that was alluded to, and I went back and I watched the clip, and it wasn't Dan saying this, and it felt almost like, and I could play it now, but we really don't have time, but it felt like what's his bucket, Brian Kilmeade. It almost felt like, and I feel like I do have to play this, it feels like he's talking about an off-air conversation. This never clicked with me. I've watched this clip a dozen times, but pay attention to this and see if you picked up what I did.
There's three cases that you're looking at: the D.C. pipe bombings, the Supreme Court leak on the Dobbs decision, and the cocaine in the White House. You say one of them, within a day or two, we're going to have a major break?
All right. I think that Bongino said that during a commercial break. And now Kilmeade's the one saying it, and now Dan's in a position where he's like, oh, crap. I shouldn't have said it like that, but I did.
Well, we've got a good tip this morning. We're going to run it out. We're not going to be able to make that public, obviously, right away, because we have to make sure, and we have to go all the proper steps. What I don't want to do ever, and I've said this before,
I don't want to keep this going, because time is of the essence. But it was alluded to that we do have something coming with the J6 pipe bomb or the Dobbs leak or the cocaine in the White House. This was late May. We're still waiting around, and we do have some news to break, courtesy of you, before we part ways today. Do you have any thoughts on why aren't we getting answers when we're told we're about to get freaking answers?
Look, I'm gonna even give them a little bit of grace here. That's all I can do. I know I've already criticized the don't trust me, bro, it's coming in 2 weeks attitude or whatever. But I have criticized that, and they need to be better at it. Their general counsel or the public relations officer ought to take their Twitter accounts away from them and control it themselves.
They're probably watching this, getting really pissed.
They are. I mean, we've got a couple of agents, I'm sure, or analysts, watching the show right now. I mean, they always are.
I love the FBI. Have I ever said that? I want y'all to know that. And the IRS. Oh, wait, that's right. There is no IRS yet anymore. You see, they cut all the. Never mind.
Yeah. Yeah. The only agency I want to be dismantled worse than the FBI is the IRS, but that's another story. The reality is that sometimes, and I've been just as guilty of this, of saying, it's coming about a story. And then it takes us, weeks or months to get all of the I's dotted, T's crossed before we can even think that we can get it past our 3 layers or 4 layers of editors and past our own legal counsel at the Blaze. And even then, sometimes we can't. It is what it is.
Joe Boo needs a refill.
It's like go back to the drawing board, try again.
I know. Okay.
And that almost happened, with the story today.
Okay. Yeah. Hold that thought.
It was very difficult, but I'm saying that to everyone as a positive is the fact that we're not allowed to go out just willy-nilly and and I'm not going to name some of our competitors who do that, and they do that as a matter of policy. I mean, I've spoken to writers at a couple of other right-wing publications that say, publish first, we'll worry about facts later. It's more about the clicks and that sort of thing. I got complaint today about clicks on our story today because they said it was nothing but clickbait because it's got a paywall. Well, I mean, look, we're a subscription model. We don't have
I love your response to that.
Right. We don't have any ads on our website.
I remember one time you tweeted back at somebody a picture of a newspaper stand.
Yeah, a wall.
You have to put your quarters in the to get the newspaper.
Right. All the old newspaper machines, are things where you had to drop quarters in.
Okay.
That's
Yep.
my response.
Okay. Let's see if you and I, and this is a comment to myself as much as you. Let's see if we can do rapid fire, legitimate rapid fire. Because dear God, we have to talk about this breaking news story. Steve Baker, will there be justice for those who lied about the Russia probe? Come on, FBI. Come on. What does Steve Baker's gut tell him?
We'll probably get a couple of token trials out of it. I don't know if we'll get convictions or not.
Okay, I'm going to be John McLaughlin here. Wrong. Sorry. Let's see. James O'Keefe recently revealed that Mike Pompeo and Adam Schiff were apparently working a coup against President Trump in his first term. Where's the FBI on that, Steve Baker? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, next. Let's see. Any real movement on holding anyone accountable for the following? The Mar-a-Lago raid.
I mean, who other than the people that ordered it? I mean, the agents are going to follow orders. That doesn't mean that they, they knew what the political situation was behind the scene. Look, there's going to be agents on the ground that day that were both Trump supporters and those who weren't. But
Okay. I'm watching the rush hour traffic build in your neighborhood. The use of the auto pen by the Biden administration. Anybody can be held accountable for that? Steve Baker.
My God, there couldn't be an easier one than that. I mean, I would think that maybe the president can actually do something about that.
What would the fallout be, though?
That is but all the fallout would be absolutely huge.
I mean, how far back do you want to unwind that shit?
It is an executive order, executive branch issue. So I would imagine that their attorneys have been looking at what they can do, but I certainly don't have the legal knowledge to know.
And there was a blip recently of Chinese mass ballots, if you recall, around the 2020 election. Do we think there's going to be any justice on that? I'm asking for an editorial opinion at this point now, obviously, because I'm in a hurry.
Yeah, my editorial opinion on that has been informed by my actual knowledge of the quote-unquote stolen election at this point. It took me 22 months after the election before I ever even mentioned that it was possible that it was stolen, because I didn't have the data. I didn't have the context. I didn't have I didn't have, I was like, okay, it looks, it's just, I know what the math looks like. I know what the hockey stick curves look like. I know what all these other things are, but then now I kind of have more insider knowledge. And I think
if you or anybody else are interested, pinned to the top here at Keith Malinak on X, there are a series of conversations I had with Jovan Pulitzer about election integrity in America. It's very enlightening, and you will quickly come to the conclusion that there was nothing but fraud involved in the 2020 election. And he will be back here 4 weeks from today on November 6th on the Thursday Deep Dive to give us an update on where we stand as far as election integrity. I don't have my hopes up. Matthew Crooks, Butler, Pennsylvania. Where the hell did that story go, sir? FBI going to do anything with that?
I think that there's still going to be some interesting developments revealed in that, because I believe that Matthew Crooks was groomed.
By who? By who?
By some elements.
You don't have to answer if you don't know. Because you're a journalist, I am not. I will say cell phone towers ping near the FBI.
I will tell you that we have not given up in what we're looking at in regards to that situation.
Good. Any justice coming for those who perpetrated SWAT incidents at the homes of conservatives?
Well,
FBI,
hey, dude, I just had a story about that on Friday.
Oh shit!
Did you miss it?
Yeah, my bad.
The sim farms that were discovered in New York.
No,
that's where the swatting was initiated from.
That's right. No, I did see that from you, bro. I did, but I'm drinking too much. Is the problem?
Well,
yes.
Because you do your show on Friday, and you
were is fascinating, actually.
Yeah. No, I mean we know.
Okay.
We know the origination of those swatting calls against conservative influencers and politicians.
That was an excellent article. People. Yes, you're right. Theblaze.com. Search for Steve Baker, and all of his articles come up. Yes, that was stunning. That was an aspect of that. And that's an act of war. And the article clearly demonstrates that
we've got more on that. We've also got more on that coming. Sorry, wait for it. Yeah, it's coming.
Why wasn't former FBI Director James Comey awakened at 6 a.m. like everybody else does? That's just personal from me.
Yeah, I mean, They're not going to do.
Why didn't he get a perp walk? You got a lovely little perp walk. He
Yeah.
didn't get one of those.
Mine was at 7 a.m. So yeah.
Oh, look at you. Your ass sleep in a little bit. Okay. Breaking news today. Steve Baker here. The title of the article is Video Sleuth Challenges FBI January 6th Pipe Bomb Narrative Unearths New Evidence. I couldn't stop highlighting this thing here. I mean, there's just so much here. I'm going to let me get the ball rolling, and then you jump in. Interrupt me whenever you need to, okay? I just love the opening paragraph. A detailed analysis of the January 6th pipe bombs found new problems with the FBI evidence and advances the notion that the case could turn out to be a government-created hoax. What? So it goes on to talk about Armitage, who is, I guess that's his handle on X. Yes, Armitage?
Yeah, that's his name. He's got a different handle.
Okay. But he'll
be trending today. You can look him up.
Yes. So he put out this report that talks about how there's so much here, Steve, and I don't want to sit here and read the article, but I do want to talk to you about it. I had no idea that the bomb was planted on January 5th, retrieved, and then brought back later. That was brand new information, correct? Because I wasn't aware of that personally.
That's the most stunning thing that I think is part of this is it's not that it's not been theorized for quite some time. We're not the first person, and Armitage is not the first person to conjecture that at least at the DNC that the bomb had not been placed on the 6th rather than the 5th. But what the new evidence is of an apparent retrieval because it was broken, because originally what Armitage discovered is that the original location intended for the DNC pipe bomb was actually the Congressional Black Caucus.
Black Caucus, yes. And
all the white supremacists.
Oh, yes, that's right. So, and the bomb, if this is the bomb, a vodka bottle for those that are listening, if it was placed this way originally, that when the moron put it back, he turned it the wrong way.
Right. There's multiple reasons for people to go read the story to find out the little minute. And by the way,
I shouldn't be
the report that Armitage submitted to Congress. I want to give, not only do I want to give props to this guy for what the work is that he has done, but I was contacted by him. I want to say probably about a year and a half ago, and he was somebody that was intensely focused on this. I'm not being critical. I'm actually being very complimentary when I say that. He's kind of a high functioning, guy on the spectrum.
Sure.
And he admits that. And back in March of this year, because of the work that he was posting on his own X account at the time. And by the way, I kept trying to get him not to post I was like, save it, because we wanted it all. But it's
so how much of this article can I reveal?
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and we're gonna.
It's incredible information.
Yeah, it's incredible. But what happened is that because of the work that he was posting publicly, he attracted the attention of the FBI, and they started reaching out to him back in March, and then he started, very cooperatively feeding them, and by his own statements to us, he believes particularly that the agent that he's working with on this investigation is actually really concerned. No, really
a good guy,
and really positively concerned about getting to the truth of this thing.
Okay.
So here we are, complimenting the FBI. And so that he really believes this. And in fact, because of his unique situation, he doesn't travel and doesn't leave his home. Okay. And they wanted him to come up to Washington to be interviewed and to present all of his evidence there. But because he doesn't do that, he doesn't travel, he can't. He had already arranged, they had already arranged they were going to send a couple of agents down to his home. I'm not going to say where, but they were going to send agents to his home in another state. And then at that point, he would be able to kind of walk through them on video screens and that sort of thing and show them his discoveries. But then that was supposed to happen here just like this week or so, but then the government shutdown happened, so that got canceled. But also then just 3 or 4 days ago, actually on the 3rd, I think is when he submitted it, but he received an email from one of the lawyers for the Judiciary Committee, not the Select Committee, but he received an email from the Judiciary Committee, which is Jordan's committee.
That's what I'm about to look up. Yeah.
Yeah, asking him to send over a synopsis of his work. So he complied, and he put together a 26-page overview of his work, which, by the way, I encourage, I'll just tell you that we're going to be covering more of that, because we left a lot of the detail out, because we only have so many words we can get in a story that people will read, and if we get permission from him to publish this, then we'll publish his work directly. But the other thing is that he complied to that as well. So not only were the FBI interested in his work, but the Judiciary Committee wants it, and that was sent up, and he addressed it directly to Congressman Barry Loudermilk, who is the chairman of the new Select Subcommittee to investigate January 6th. So that's who he addressed it to. And Joe Hanneman, also from The Blaze, my partner in crime on many of these stories and these investigations, we prepared this and put this together, our own synopsis of his work in the story that we published today. And I'll just tell you, yet, as I said in my own X post of that article, is that there's more coming, and we're excited to roll that out. On a positive note, maybe, in the process of, when we do these stories, we have to reach out to the characters that we talk about, whether we're talking about the FBI or the Secret Service, like the story that came out last week about the SIM farms, we have to reach out to them with questions and comments. So, for instance, last week when I reached out to the Secret Service before we posted that article about the SIM farms, I got an immediate response from them. They were very friendly. We went over my list of questions. They gave us answers and actually asked us to hold off on a couple of our things that we were going to reveal for quote unquote operational security. And we agreed to that. And so in this particular story, I reached out to the FBI, or we reached out, I think actually Joe did this time. He reached out to the FBI to get comment with just 2 questions. And he got an auto response from his email, because they said, due to the government shutdown, we're only taking questions right now that are pertaining to national security. So I went, okay. Okay, well, guess what? I have access to both Cash and Dan. I'll just send them the questions directly. So I bypassed their public relations office and sent it directly to them, and we got a favorable comment back. So we didn't get answers in time for the story, but it looks like we may be able to actually talk to them. So I'm looking forward to that in a very positive way.
Good. I want to read a quote from your story, if I could.
Yeah.
The DNC video has been doctored. So this is the video from the DNC building, has been doctored so much and so hard that it is no longer representative of events in real time, end quote. That's a quote from Armitage. I want to point out he's so good that we know what kind of shoes the bomb planter was wearing. It goes on to talk about a handoff of sorts. There's more people involved in this as far as blocking. Anyway, read the article. Yeah. It's just incredible information here. Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Let me tell you something we didn't cover in the story, but I think is the most damning issue related to, we'll call it the previous FBI, and that is this. With regards to the DNC video, not only are the couple of cameras of information that the FBI only ever released a few seconds of related to the pipe bomber when he sat down on the bench, not only has it been highly altered, I mean, they cut down to literally 1 frame per second as opposed to 10 or 30 from a high definition or even more, down to 1 frame per second. But Armitage told me months ago as he was examining this, and by the way, this is what he does. He I'm not going to give away what he does, where he works, who he works for, but this is his profession. And it's why he's so good at it, is that he was able to actually identify from the digital footprint where whoever was manipulating the frame rate actually removed frames and moved them to another place. That's why he said the timelines are they don't even represent time.
Yeah, there's a thing in the article where it talks about the time sync is actually 15 seconds off.
Yeah.
Is that because of all that heavy editing?
Absolutely. And then, but this is still not even the most damning part about the DNC videos. So the DNC cameras are not the Capitol Police cameras. Capitol Police cameras, which we proved through, our work a year or more ago, was that these investigative cameras were turned away from the investigation scene, coincidentally by somebody.
Yeah. Now you reported on that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. But
the cameras turned away from. Yeah.
Fact is, of those couple of cameras at the DNC, is where in the hell is the footage from the middle of the night? Where in the hell is the footage from the next morning? If they would just release the footage from those two cameras, we would know exactly what happened when the Secret Service bomb dogs did their sweep. We would know exactly what happened when the Secret Service agents did their sweep, the human guys doing the investigation, because Kamala Harris was on her way there that day. That's why the Secret Service was there. And then we would also know who found the bomb. We know that it was a United States Capitol Police counter surveillance team that found it. We would know whether they were the ones that returned it. We would know whether somebody retrieved it at 4:40 a.m. Conclusively, they could shoot this theory down in a heartbeat. So the question I have for the current FBI, as well as the old FBI, is where in the hell is the we want give us 24 hours from those two cameras. Damn it. It's not hard. You only have seconds.
No. It's even better. Your story has that awesome detail about when you try to access, it crashes the system.
That's the cellular network, and
that's right. I'm sorry.
This is the FirstNet network, because see, there, this guy that I told you earlier, that I interviewed, for 9 hours. This guy that's a former FBI, went through whistleblower, blah 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 blah. He had a FirstNet card that he kept in his pocket, in his wallet, because when cellular systems go down because of let's just say maybe a terror attack, or maybe they're overwhelmed by a large, gigantic crowd, like on January 6th, then the first responders have priority access through a special number, code, whatever. But he said, I had my card with the access code to access FirstNet. Well, it just so happens that FirstNet, the network that should have been able to pick up his text messages and his phone calls, the little hooded alleged bomber, because he's found, as Armitage shows in his report here, he's seen many times taking texts, sending texts, talking on the phone, he's getting and receiving messages, which some of them seem to be to alter his location and his destination, those kinds of things. And in the process of that, the next day, when it was overwhelmed, and now we're being told that those files were corrupted and deleted. So you're saying that not only was the entire AT&T network corrupted and deleted during that time period, but the FirstNet data was corrupted as well? Well, yeah, apparently that's what they're saying. And it just so happened that the girl, Carolyn Younger, however you say her name, who found the alleged bomb at the RNC, or it wasn't the RNC, it was the Capital City Club. And the girl that found it, she happened to be an employee of FirstNet at that time.
Wonk, wonk.
That's in the story. Now, not making any implications there. I'm just saying.
Nope, just a fact.
It's a fact.
Just the facts, man. Okay. Okay. One last question about the story, and then I have one more comment, and then you can say whatever you want to say. On the story, I wanted to ask you, it's kind of alluded to in the article. And so I'm going to ask you to tell us something that's not in there if you have this knowledge. The J6 pipe bomber seemed to be familiar with the area.
Yeah.
Do we know, because I don't know where all the cameras in DC are, but do we know the individual is 5'7"? We know what kind of shoes the individual wore. Do we know where that individual lives?
No.
Okay. And then my final thoughts before I let you have the last word. I think Kash Patel and I think Dan Bongino are good people. I really do. I think they were the best people for the roles that they're in. But something has happened. My gut tells me something has happened. And I don't know what that is. But I sincerely hope that they do the right thing in all things. And I hope that they course correct as soon as possible. Do I think that there are certain things that are going to take longer than others? Absolutely. Investigations, uncovering evidence, trying to unwind a century of decay, quite frankly, at the FBI. Those I understand. And I give grace on some of those things, man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But some of these things seem so simple. And if they're not, then please tell us.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like the whistleblowers, I cannot understand. With investigations, I can. With uncovering the corruption and the rot that's been in there for generations, I get it. But so help me. If you want more grace on all of these other things that are full-on investigations or corruption that needs to be rooted out, then take what should be an easy PR win and get these whistleblowers back on the job. And I just wonder if he thinks a tweet from August is going to suffice and make people think, oh, well, I guess that's done. Good. That's not going to do it. Okay. We're going to keep bugging you. I promise you. Anyway, I hope that things change. I hope that good wins over evil. I'm still stunned that Trump won and was inaugurated after all of the corruption that has been revealed in our electoral system. So now that we've got them in place, we know that power is fleeting and that the clock is ticking. So I'm begging you to work faster, get this stuff course corrected as soon as humanly possible, because I do think that y'all are the right people for this job. I don't necessarily have the same thought about your boss, talking about the Attorney General. But anyway, that's a conversation for another time. Steve Baker, do you have something else you want to leave us with here before we part ways and you go and have a fun evening?
Yeah, I Cash, Dan, call me. It's no more complicated than that. If you want to talk, let's talk. Give us the reasons to these questions that Keith has asked today, because you can give us the reasons if there are in fact reasons for why this is slow rolled, why you're brick walled, why you're not getting the help that you need from your own agency to take care of these things. Tell us. These are the kind of PR wins that would be easy for you if you do that.
We are your allies, man.
Well, we want to be, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll just say this, and again, from the people that I talk to that are not, and we're not talking about the community of whistleblowers, but retired agents, as well as current employees, is that their most positive thing that they feel like is that the current administration may be in over their head and don't know what they got into when they, went out with, or came in with the all the proclamations of turning, the Hoover building into a museum to the state.
I'm letting that one go.
Right. But once they got there, they went, oh, crap, it's worse than that. All right.
I don't doubt it. I mean, Mike Lee famously said that the House of Cards TV show, it's worse than that.
Yeah, yeah, but there are. I'll go back to saying the same thing. The biggest fix they need right now is on the PR side, and I hope that that's all it is. If it's worse than that, they should tell us. They should roll out and explain exactly what is keeping them from doing the things that they promised to do, or what the delays are keeping them from doing what they promised to do, and then we'll report it. And we'll, as I said, regardless of what I know, what I think I know, what I'm being told, here's the thing. I'm being told things on a daily basis. I question. I don't know if I'm being set up to embarrass me. Okay.
I bet, bro.
I have to ask that question every single day of every single piece of information that I get. They also have to be asking the same exact question. Are they being told things to embarrass them?
Yeah.
And that is a real problem with how information is manipulated out of DC. And I'm not talking about just the Bureau, but it's just true, especially true in the entire intelligence community, because there is, there's disinformation, there's counter disinformation. There's a reason why they call them double agents, and it's spy versus spy, and in that town. And sometimes that's even between the agencies themselves. Let me tell you, the agencies themselves, they don't necessarily like each other all the time.
And we have no idea what they're going through.
Yeah.
And we have no idea what they're facing on a daily basis. But boy, it's frustrating on this.
It is. Yes, sir. Keith.
All right, brother. Yeah. Steve Baker, go to theblaze.com, do a search for Steve Baker, and you'll find all of his awesome articles. Follow him on X at Steve Baker USA. We'll do this again at some point. Hopefully we'll have some good news to report on what's happening in the world. Until then, y'all, please be well. We will see you here 22 hours from now, 3 p.m. Eastern, for the Friday live stream. Brad and Rebecca will join me, and I promise you, I got a lot of lighthearted stuff in the stack for tomorrow. All right, y'all be well. Please be safe. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Keith.